Around 2003, Doug Michael and his Brazilian wife Gabby began to look at opportunities to add value to their cropping farm without having to buy more land. They eventually decided to build their own malting operation and are now supplying a rapidly growing number of boutique craft beer breweries here in New Zealand and overseas.
Well, we've been growing malting barley for 5 generations now in Canterbury, so we're continuing the tradition. The difference now is that the whole farm's in malting barley, whereas in the past we were obviously mixed cropping and we used to run breeding ewes as well. The majority of the barleys that are grown here in New Zealand have actually come from overseas, and most of those varieties at some stage have been bred specifically for malting, and they've come over here and obviously we're able to pick them up and use them for that purpose. There's certain things that we do differently than we'll probably with the feed barley. We've got to be careful that we look after the grain. We don't want sprouted grain and we don't want grain that's been damaged with the harvest, because otherwise it will affect the germination quality of the finished grain. Growing good crops is all about timing and management, so you can't afford to let one thing affect the other. So you just got to be really on the ball and have good time management and make sure you organise. Of course, you've got to have a good wife to back you up.
We didn't know anything about malt as such as a business. We knew the concept of germinating the barley, but the machinery they use or how you're going to sell it, it was miles away from us. And that was a challenge. That was where we were interested as a newly married couple and say, let's grab this opportunity and see where that takes us. We're the only one in New Zealand that makes it into the craft market. There we produce about 25 types of malt. You could say you can't be successful without having luck. Luck is a huge component at Gladfield. It was just perfect timing. That Doug and I met and we were both interested in add value in the farm industry. B, there was a malt house in Leeston, which is only 20 minutes from here, that wasn't not in operation, so we were able to grab some equipment from there. So we had a bit of a head start. And C, we heard brewers complaining that they want a truly Kiwi product to work with, and was in mercy of the importers who were dictating the price. So it would be good to have someone come in and level that price for them and make it fair. So all these stood up for us and say, well, this is an opportunity, and we like to grab opportunities. All we're doing is germinating that barley, just like it is in the soil, and then we're going to stop that germination by drying it, and then we're going to empty it out and put it into bags. That's in a nutshell. So before you get that barley into the germination box, you put it into the steeps, which is giant silos, where you add water to this barley. Basically, you want to get that moisture from 14% up to about 45–48%, which translates into the barley thinks, oh, I can germinate, I can grow, and that's what we want. We want a healthy growth, and the difference is at Gladfield, what we care about it is how good that barley is to start off, and that's what dictates the quality of the malt. It's all controlled by a computer, the temperature settings, and it's basically airflow to get the CO2 out of that germination bed, as well as bringing fresh air so it grows healthy. This is how a barley looks like a 4-day germination, and as you can see, that's the rootless. It looks just like it will be into the soil. This is where the rootless is, and right here on the grain, it's where it's going to come out as a plant. We want the endosperm to grow about 3/4 of the grain, length of the grain, and that means that the protein's been broken down. Basically what you want to activate the sugars, the energy that this grain have stored in there, to be able to give enough energy to the shoot of the plant to get through the soil. So you got the 5-day process of the germination, and you get 2 days of kilning. And how you get a nail between the nail and a pilsner is the temperature that you use during the kilning process. And then you got one step further, which is these malts here. This is a toffee, and it's going through the roaster. 2 years ago, we imported a roaster. which is the first one in New Zealand. And it's exactly to make different types of specialty malts. And then you get a bit more towards the colour. It's a bit the spices in the beer. How you make that is you germinate the barley like you're doing with the other malts. And then you add these germinated barley into the drum, the roaster drum. And that's going to have temperatures in there. And depending what the malts you make. So you're going to get the grain there, you're going to melt that sugar, and then you go up the temperature a bit more, and then you're going to crystallize it, which gives a popcorn effect. As you can see, the grain is really plump and real easy to crunch. And then one malt that we discovered that we can make in the roaster, which is unique for Gladfield, is the toffee malt. The toffee malt is the same process basically as the crystal malts, but we don't give the popcorn effect. So the colour is not built up on that grain, and it's quite a lot of moisture in that grain, so it's not very easy to crush. But given a beer, for like a Pilsner beer, which is a light in colour, the toffee malt gives a lot of sugar residue, which makes the beer with more body and more head retention. So the beer is a lot pleasure to drink if you add a little bit of this malt. The reason why we have a lot of malts here is we are driven by what the craft brewers want. We want to develop unique malts so they can lavish, the craft beer can lavish from that. Instead of us telling them, that's it, you know, that's the set of malts you can play with, we say, no, tell us what you want, we'll make it for you. And the classic example is our Shepherd's Delight. It's a malt designed for red beers that we designed in conjunction with a brewer in Australia.
It is really good, especially now that we're into exporting and, you know, we're supplying so many different breweries, and we're getting a lot of really positive feedback from all around the world about our product. And, you know, it's obviously a pretty high quality product, and brewers, you know, they're having some really good success with it. And to get that real positive feedback from the customers really does make it worthwhile.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.